are being reawakened, and they're being used in many ways purposefully. To create a kind of, some people will call it a right-wing extremism. These voices are emerging, and they've been given, I believe, a greater platform to be louder than they've been for a very, very long time. And this is not just happening in our country, in the United States, but it's happening in countries around the world. Brazil is going through elections right now, and very soon will more than likely elect a very right-wing president who is often referred to as the Brazilian Donald Trump. We are seeing incidents rising in the UK and in Germany. So there is a rising tide of this darkness. Because as I've said, the brighter the light, the deeper the shadow. But what happens when that light begins to dim? Well, the shadow comes up bigger than ever. And that seems to be what's happening. What do I mean by the light dimming? Well, the light dims when a sense of hopefulness, a sense of illumination, a sense of connectedness, a sense of feeling part of something beyond yourself, a part of something greater. When those sorts of feelings begin to be replaced by despair or disillusionment or feelings of disconnect, that's when the light dims. And why, you might ask, is this light dimming? Why is this happening worldwide? And it's an interesting question. I think it has to do with the evolving transformation that I spent, close to a year and a half talking about back in 2014 and 15. The era of transformation is upon us. We are evolving into a world that is ultimately safer, kinder, more connected, more aware, more prosperous than it ever has been before. But along the way, you're going to have fits and starts. Along the way, you're going to get detours. Along the way, you have to go back and resolve issues that haven't been resolved. Because if you don't, they lurk there in the darkness. And eventually they rise up when you least expect them. And, trip you up. That's what I think is going on here. we've sort of ignored or pushed to the fringes people who have certain ideas. And these ideas we find distasteful, but we relegate them to sort of the sidelines. But when you do that, when you just silence someone, it doesn't change them at all. It just allows whatever anger, whatever frustrations they're feeling to fester. And certain clever people can take advantage of that and use it for their own advantage. Many people believe that's what's going on. Certainly it seems like people like this man who committed the shootings at the synagogue. His name's Robert B. Bowers. Apparently has quite a number of anti-Semitic postings on social media. And this man, Cesar Sayoc, in Florida, is the man that sent these pipe bombs to all of these people. They feel emboldened at this point in time. And we have a president who has just openly called himself a nationalist. So these voices that used to kind of hide in the shadows, that used to be relegated and contained due to social disapproval, all of a sudden are feeling more emboldened to come forward. And it may feel scary for a time. But if we use our highest skills, we can find an answer to this. And an answer may not seem like much to some. And it doesn't mean that you don't speak out against acts like this, or that you accept them as a part of life. But what you can do is raise your consciousness, raise your energy. And you put that energy out into the world without judgment, without attacking, without fear-mongering, without screaming or crying or blaming, but just to raise that energy. When that energy is raised, it has an effect of raising energy all around. And by doing that, that is one of the most powerful things that you can do. Because by raising the energy level, you raise these people's energy level. That doesn't mean that they're going to change overnight. But it may get them to the point where they reconsider doing some of the things that they do. Where they are able to look at things from a different perspective. And that doesn't mean you go out and try to make that happen. You don't need to. All you need to do is raise your energy. Because if we are all feeling frustrated and angry and fearful, then that creates that energy, and that energy snowballs. And you don't know how it will take shape, what form it will come. Whether it's through anti-Semitic remarks, shootings, bombings, what have you. Once that negative energy gets going, it feeds on itself. So even, if you're a person who's deeply affected by these events that seem to be so wrong, and you're frustrated and angry, well, that's the energy that's coming up in you. And that's exactly the energy that feeds upon itself and adds to creating more of it. Because that energy loves to feed on itself. So that's my perspective. I felt like I needed to spend extra time on that today because of, all the things that have been going on. But now I would like to move on. Today we're going to continue our talk about heroes of consciousness. These are scientists and researchers and people with a fascinating interest in helping others discover and explore their spiritual nature, their mystical nature. And we've been talking about it a lot in the context of the new research that's sort of being done in psychedelics. And some of these researchers are really bold pioneers who have been going against a trend that is some 40 years old, in which the chemicals, psychedelic chemicals such as psilocybin and LSD, have had a negative baggage, if you will, that comes from the time in the 1960s when there began to be these stories about young people who were, as Timothy Leary used to say, tuning in and dropping out. And that this was a dangerous kind of drug that caused people to lose their minds and hurt other people and jump out windows and things of that nature. It simply wasn't true. Not that there hadn't been incidents in which someone who may have had underlying problems dropped acid, as they say, or took a psychedelic, and it intensified the problem. But those are very few and very far between. And the positive effects that these chemicals, when used properly, can have, not just in helping patients who aren't well, but in helping well patients to be more attuned, be more aware. So these people have been researching through these chemicals this kind of approach. And a prominent one who actually bridges the gap between the new science of today, the new research they're doing today, which apparently began somewhere around 2006, when the government allowed these drugs that have been made illegal to be able to be used by researchers with approval from the FDA. And when that started, more research and better research began to take place. There had been a lot of research in the 50s and 60s before the drug was made illegal, and LSD sort of